Pokémon Red, Green, Blue and Yellow were absolutely massive successes, and this proved that Pokémon was here to stay. I mean, we all know this. Generation 9 of Pokémon was announced literally just a few days ago, but I want to go back to Pokémon's original sequel, Generation 2, Pokémon Gold, Silver, and later Crystal, released in late 1999 and early 2000 for the Game Boy Color. For this video I chose to play through Silver version as this was my first ever mainline Pokemon game back in the day. Like in my Gen 1 video I'll be doing a Nuzlocke run, the same rules as last time with an additional rule I'll explain much later in the video when it becomes relevant. The game starts in New Barktown, which, fun fact, I think was called Silent Hill in the beta, but they might have changed it because well, I don't imagine they want their fun monster catching game associated with the horror series of the same name. Imagine youngster Joey's out there just trying to catch a Spearow and fucking Vatiel just rolls up. There's a very rude child standing by Professor Elm's window who will turn out to be your rival for this game. Elm gives you your starter and the task of delivering something to a Mr. Pokemon. This starts our journey proper, but not our Nuzlocke challenge, as we still need to be given Pokeballs. Mr. Pokemon turns out to be an old bud of Professor Oak, who gives us a Pokédex. On the way back we bump into the boy from earlier and our first trainer battle begins, as I picked Totodile, which I named Gobbo, because Croc. Once we get back to Elm he gives us an egg, and with some Pokeballs our Nuzlocke begins proper. Gold, Silver and Crystal introduce a real-time day and night cycle, which changes what Pokemon are likely to appear. Because I first played this in the evening, this resulted in my first caught Pokemon being a Hoot-Hoot, which I named Snoozy, who died before even getting to the first gym. Falcon is pretty tough considering all he has is a Pidgey and Pidgeotto. My team by this point was Mario the Geodude, Gobbo, Boogie the Rattata, Gluck the Bellsprout, and a Zubat called who died because I messed up. In Violet City we also get Flash and a little speech from Silver, the rival, who insists the Pokemon are tools, nothing more. On the way back to the next destination, Azalea Town, the egg we were given hatches into Togepi, who serves as the introduction to baby Pokemon. Some lines in Gen 1 and 2 alike introduce extra evolutions to existing Pokemon. For example, Golbat can evolve into new Pokemon Crobat. There's also baby Pokemon like Magby who evolve into Magmar, and Togepi who evolves into Togetic. Once we reach the new town we find none other than Team Rocket trying to cut off Slowpoke tails for profit, and the sprites look absolutely fucked, like these fellas have seen some shit. Poor guys. With them chased off, it's time to fight the Bug Gym, and I didn't really have an issue with this at all. And I hear all the time that people never knew if Bugsy was a guy or a girl, but I always thought it was pretty obvious Bugsy's like a young boy. What I said before goes for the rival battle here as well. It didn't really give me any issues, but I didn't have anything to directly counter his Bayleaf, so it took a while to take down. After some shenanigans with some Farfetch'd in the forest, we get the HM for cut and move up to Goldenrod. However, just before that is the daycare and a new mechanic Gen 2 debuts, and it's to become a staple feature for a lot of people in the series going forward. In Gen 1 you could only leave one Pokemon at the daycare to let them gain levels. Not only can you leave two in Gold, Silver and Crystal, if you leave a male and female Pokemon in corresponding egg groups, they can an egg will mysteriously show up out of nowhere. How crazy. What a mystery. Now the gym leader of Goldenrod needs no introduction. Whitney, the normal type leader. In terms of her reputation, she's like a baby Cynthia, for lack of a better term. And honestly, I was a little bit intimidated, but it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. Gluck and new addition Wisp the Ghastly were able to put a Pokemon to sleep pretty reliably, although Wisp died during the fight. One thing I haven't mentioned up until now, which is just a huge quality of life improvement, is being able to see the EXP bar during battles, which really helps with training up your team. I decided to replace Wisp with a Weedle I called Wiggler, because, as we all know, it's always Wiggler Wednesday in our hearts. After beating Whitney, you can open up the region a lot more by annoying a Sudowoodo, who kind of acts as a mini-boss in like a traditional JRPG sense. And I'm not sure why, but I can vividly remember thinking he was like a legendary Pokemon because he was a unique Pokemon shown as an overworld sprite. That aside, I caught him and decided to name him after the legendary man himself, Mirror B. The next major area is Ecruteak City, the Lost City more or less. It's heavily steeped in Johto's old culture and I think it's really interesting. We learn all about the Kimono Girls, the Burnt Tower, the Tin Tower and the legendary dogs as well as Ho-Oh and Lugia depending on the version. You have to beat all the Kimono Girls who use the evolutions along with newcomers Umbreon and Espeon to get the Surf HM, which kind of plays into Entei, Suicune and Raikou, the legendary dogs I mentioned before in the tower. It's said that 3 Pokemon died in the tower long ago, Rain put out the fire and these legendary Pokemon rose from the debris, making me agree with the fan theory that a Flareon, Jolteon and Vaporeon were those that died in there. Morty's here too and he's the ghost type leader. He's not really that noteworthy, but I want to say this gym puzzle is pretty shite. It's literally just a trial and error invisible walkway. Oh, another thing, never, and I mean never accept a trainer's phone number in this game. It just stops the pace of the game completely for some NPCs to tell you tidbits that are rarely ever of any use. If you could choose to accept or decline the call, I feel like this would have gone a long way to make it a lot less annoying. To the left of Ecruteak is Olivine City, however the gym leader isn't there. Instead, Jasmine is in the top of the lighthouse taking care of the Ampharos who's fallen ill. She asks you to travel to the nearby Cyanwood City in order to get a cure for the sick Pokemon. Naturally we agree and head on over, although little did I know.
This would be the beginning of the end.
Oh, I just also want to point out that the sprites look absolutely beautiful in battle, especially compared to that in Generation 1. In terms of the overworld it looks more or less the same, but the presentation of the battle sprites just makes everything all the more engaging in my opinion. But Gen 2 also fixes one of, if not the biggest issue I had in Gen 1, the special stat, which is now split into special attack and special defense, now allowing the type to be more diverse and not just stupidly overpowered. In an effort to keep things more balanced as well, we also get 2 new types, Dark, which specifically claps Psychic types, and Steel types, a typically more defense oriented type which count as Ice and Rock types, and are resistant to many types including Normal and Psychic. Cyanwood also has a gym, with Chuck, the leader who specializes in fighting types, and I will say, fuck Chuck. Chuck is the fucking worst. His Poliwrath is level 30 and a massive level spike compared to literally any Pokemon seen thus far, and I must have had the worst luck in the world. Its Dynamic Punch, which isn't a very accurate move, hit every single time, without fail, causing automatic confusion, and he ended up wiping my team. I thought my Slowpoke I called me would give me an edge, him being Psychic type and all, but nah, I was absolutely wiped, so I went off to grind a brand new team. So, it took a while, but I'm back with a whole new party matching Poliwrath's level. Drifto the Tentacruel, Freak the Arbok, Mirabia the Sudowoodo, Seedling the Sunkern, Fridge the Magneton, and Gib the Eevee. I had a much better time, but I still wasn't able to beat Chuck without casualties. He killed Seedling, which, to be honest, I wasn't really bothered about, and that's because getting evolutionary stones is a pain in the arse in a normal playthrough, since you have to go back and show Bill's Granddad and Goldenrod specific Pokemon to get specific stones. So in a Nuzlocke, where I can only catch 1 Pokemon per route, this wasn't going to happen, so both Bill's Granddad and Sunkern can just fuck right off. But after getting the medicine and delivering back to the lighthouse, we can now battle Jasmine, the first Steel-type gym leader, and it's a good challenging fight, but her and Chuck really emphasize the worst quality of Gold, Silver and Crystal, that being the level curve. The highest level Pokemon seen so far goes from Poliwrath at level 30 to her Steelix to a whopping level 35, and not much option for grinding considering wild Pokemon and trainers barely border in the level 20 region, but I managed to succeed luckily. Right, we've explored all there is to look at the left side of Ecruteak, now let's look to the right side. Next stop, Mahogany Town, and by extension the Lake of Rage, famous for its abundance of Magikarp, which are now angry Gyarados since they've been evolved prematurely due to the meddling of Team Rocket. Now this is where the extra rule I mentioned at the start of the Nuzlocke comes into play, the Shiny Clause. Shiny Pokemon were first introduced in Gen 2, and they're recolors of existing Pokemon that are extremely rare. Now the chances of finding one in the wilds I'm not fully sure of, but I've been able to find percentages of specific Pokemon, but not overall. But nowadays shiny chances in modern Pokemon games are 1 in 4096, and I imagine that this number isn't fully far off from the percentages here. Now some people use a rule in Nuzlocke challenges where regardless if they found a Pokemon on the route already, you'll always have a chance to catch a shiny, and I'm going to be implementing this rule here. Is it cheating since this is a guaranteed encounter? A little bit, but I don't care. I would like to have nice things too, so say hello to my new pal Diavolo. So like I said before, Team Rocket were the cause of what's going on, so you and returning character Lance find out the shop is a front for a Team Rocket base, so we've got to put it out of commission. I feel a bit mixed about this section. I love the premise, but I'm not a fan of how they handled the executives. They clearly wanted to make them stand out, have individual personalities, but none of them are ever really named, and they all share the exact same sprite, so it just comes across as 3 rando guys and a woman. It doesn't really make for memorable villains, and that's another flaw of Gen 2 in my opinion. Giovanni wasn't exactly the best villain ever, but he at least had a name. Granted, the remakes Heart Gold and Soul Silver fix a lot of this, but we're looking exclusively at the originals here. Moreover, the issue with the level curve rears its ugly head, but in the opposite direction. A lot of the Rockets have Pokemon that don't even go into the 20s, the executives going into the early to mid 20s. Like if the game expects you to run all the way to the Rocket base and all the way back to Olivine, that's actually mental. I also tried to catch a Voltorb as my available Pokemon for the town, but it exploded and took my Giraffare Chain Chomp with it. I knew it would. So many Pokemon here love self-destruct and explosion, and it's beyond frustrating. But with Team Rocket driven out of town, it's time to beat the Ice-type gym. Unlike the last 2 gyms, Bryce was an absolute non-issue, a complete pushover in comparison to be quite honest. But as soon as we get the badge and exit the gym, we get a phone call from Professor Elm that something weird and Team Rocket related is going on in the radio tower. So we head back to Goldenrod to discover that they've taken the whole tower hostage. Now I believe the reason why they did this is to make Pokemon go on a rampage, with the Lake of Rage being a testing grounds, but when I was younger this went completely over my head and I thought they were just constantly like, "Hello boss, can you please come back? We miss you," and that was the whole extent of their plan. I'm pretty sure that's also part of it too though. One thing I really like is the executives actually have a full party of Pokemon, which unfortunately is surprisingly uncommon in the modern game, so it was a really neat surprise. But they were ultimately my downfall. My last Pokemon was beaten by the woman executive's Murkrow, and that ends the Nuzlocke run. I'm completely out of Pokemon now. But there's still a good chunk of the game to beat, so I'm going to switch to Pokemon Crystal to continue my run. Now, I'm not going to go through everything all over again, so I'll talk a little bit about the differences in Crystal from Gold and Silver up to this point, and then pick up from where I left off. They let you play as a woman for the first time ever. That's pretty new. And they tell you what route you're on when you walk into it, so that's really fucking helpful in a Nuzlocke. In this I picked Cyndaquil as my starter. There's not much difference so far aside from a minorly improved presentation in both the overworld and battle sprites from Gold and Silver. The only big difference is that Suicune, one of the legendary dogs, has a much bigger emphasis, being the cover Pokemon, and a new character named Eugene was brought in who loves Suicune more than life itself. It's a little bit obsessive. Maybe find a different hobby. Anyway, back to where we were before. We cleared Team Rocket out of the radio tower and drove them out for good. By this time my team was Stu the Furret, Pidgeone the Pidgeotto, Angie the Typhlosion, Lawrence the Golbat, Mirabee the Sudowoodo, and Bugly the Butterfree. The director of the radio tower will thank you for rescuing him and give you the clear bell. At this point in the game you would then be able to catch Ho or Lugia depending on the version, but here you catch both, with Suicune being your opponent here. But I accidentally beat him and forgot to save. And you gotta catch all 3 to unlock Ho, so... Whoops, I kinda fucked that up. Let's move on to Blackthorn City with the final gym leader Claire of the Dragon type, which, along with having a decent gym puzzle by creating platforms with strength blocks, but from that type alone the gym feels pretty intimidating. I did not expect Stu to come in as MVP. Who would win? Fearsome monsters known for their power? Or one long boy? Babyland's she be. She really acts like it. She throws a tantrum and refuses to hand over the gym badge until you explore a nearby training cave. Another character even has to be like, if you don't give the gym badge, I'm telling Lance on you. But to be fair, she does eventually apologise, so Claire's not completely unredeemable. Oh, and Lawrence the Golbat finally evolved into Crobat. Fuck yeah, I love Crobat. Heading back to New Barktown and surfing over the water near your house takes you to Victory Road, and this confirms Johto is right next to Kanto. Victory Road and the Pokemon League pretty much being the connecting link between the two regions. After a bit of grinding in a battle with our rival, who's learned to soften up a bit after a good few ass whoopings, my final team was Angie the Typhlosion, Stu the Furret, Doppio the Gyarados, Lawrence the Crobat, Pidgeone the Pidgeot, and Bounce Boy the Jumpluff. The first of the Elite Four is Will, who uses Psychics, and honestly pose little to no threat since a couple of his Pokemon have a secondary weakness to Angie, and I taught Stu Shadow Ball. Koga has been promoted from Gym Leader to Elite Four member, and like before he specialises in Poison types. Again, not an issue at all as most of his team is weak to Fire. Again, no losses, no problem. Bruno returns from the Kanto Elite Four again with his fighting types, with an Onix thrown in for good measure. Thankfully, Pidgeone took care of most of his team, however his Onix took out Bounce Boy. Well, one down isn't too bad, right? Only the last member of the Elite Four, Karen, and the champion to go. Karen uses the new Dark type, and is a character I actually really like, and I think she's really underrated. It's small admittedly, but one of her lines really stuck with me, and I'm gonna quote it now. Strong Pokemon, weak Pokemon, that is only the selfish perception of people. Truly skilled trainers should try to win with their favourites. She did kill Stu though, so that's kinda depressing. But with 4 Pokemon left, Lance, now the champion, awaits, and I stole as much as possible, but he kicked my ass as Aerodactyl wiped me, so it's time to go away and grind a new team. So, I grinded with my new team up to the level that the Pokemon Lance beat me at, being level 47. Now with Doggeroni the Granbull, Bolo the Rapidash, Rhyhorny the Rhydon, Shulk the Magneton, Wake the Seaking, and Nasty the Arbok, and it went probably even worse than the first time. By the time I got to Lance, only Bolo and Shulk were left alive. Let's be real, I wasn't going to beat Lance with 2 Pokemon alone. Once again, I was beaten, but I still have Pokemon left in the PC, so I don't consider this Nuzlocke over. Time to go grind. Again. So, with another grinding session getting everybody up to level 50, my new team was Yorno the Slowbro, Maticate the Raticate, Andrew the Sandslash, Lav the Tentacruel, Melon the Fearow, and Raikou. It's not a nickname, it's just actually Raikou. So normally I don't like to use legendaries in these types of runs, but I did for a few reasons here. A, it was my 3rd attempt and I just wanted to get things over with at this point. B, as I killed Suicune accidentally. Let me have this please, it was in Hooroot. And C, seeing as the legendary dogs roam, meaning they can appear in the region at any time and try to dip out immediately upon finding them, I'm not going to let the chance pass up when I do come across one, so I just used my Master Ball on him. And 3rd time's the charm it seems, I was able to defeat Lance and become the champion of the Johto region. So apart from a couple legendaries to catch, that should be about it, right? Wrong. Go to Olivine City and you'll be able to get on a boat. Its destination? Vermilion City. That's right, you're able to explore the entire Kanto region from the first game, and get Kanto's gym badges with updated, stronger teams from the gym leaders. Now, I'm not continuing to do a Nuzlocke for the remainder of the game here, but I'll still be catching 1 Pokemon per area, and this is my biggest complaint when it comes to Kanto. Whilst the trainers are equipped to deal with high-level Pokemon, the wild Pokemon sure as hell aren't. It does make sense that they stay the same level as in Gen 1, since it's only been a couple years in canon to be fair, but it still doesn't really make for engaging gameplay seeing the same low-level Pokemon you've seen back in Johto. Whilst there is a small slide pot in Cerulean with a foreign team Rocket Grunt, the only thing to do really is collect all the Kanto badges, but there's a good reason for it. Getting all of them and talking to Professor Oak will unlock the way to Mount Silver. Mount Silver, the big guns. This is where pretty much all of the rare and honestly some of my favourite Johto Pokemon have been hiding. Ursaring, Larvitar and Donphan to name a few. At the end of this little dungeon is the toughest battle in the game, a battle against Red, the champion of Kanto. Everyone knows about this moment, it's iconic, and although his Pikachu's level is pretty high, level 81 here, it's level 88 in the remakes, the highest level of any trainer Pokemon in history to my knowledge. To combat his team I had Raikou, Melon, Yorno, and newcomers Strikes the Donphan, LA the Weezing, and Snorlax. I forgot to nickname the Snorlax. It's an incredibly tough but fun and exciting battle. After your victory, Red vanishes and that's it. That's pretty much everything there is to do in Pokemon Gold, Silver and Crystal. Whilst it has its issues, the fucked up level curve and weak villains to name a few, Gen 2 does so much right. No wonder this gen is beloved by fans. Like Gen 1, I would personally recommend just playing the remakes, or Gold and Soul Silver in this case, but if you really want that original experience, I would say just playing Crystal is your best bet, since you get all of the content Gold and Silver provides and more, on top of being able to walk through Kanto. I would particularly recommend getting this on the 3DS, as you can get the Japan-only event with Celebi, which is gonna go offline since it's connected to the eShop, which is closing soon. Thanks, Nintendo. That bullshit aside, Gen 2 accomplishes what they set out to do as being incredible, expansive sequels.